Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hot Mic Show. I'm Bill Whittle, live from Los Angeles. And today I thought we might just sort of do an around the bases kind of a show. Lots of little stories, none of them really particularly important enough to do all together, but taken as a group, they're kind of a snapshot for where the country is today in regards to the pop culture and everything else. So, four stories we're going to be covering today. Director Guillermo Del Toro, who just finished a very good movie. The Shape of Water is called America a Cancer under Donald Trump, so we'll be talking about that. Kid Rock is fighting back and is aggressively fighting back charges that he's a white supremacist. Kid Rock is actually floating a bid for Senate in his home state of Michigan, and he's not taking any of this stuff lying down. And then we have two stories from California. One of them involves the idea of misgendering. Misgendering is when you make the assumption that you see a woman in the room and you call her her. That's misgendering. She may not be a her, she may be a he, or some other word that you may not be familiar with, but you have no right to prejudge them. And so if this law passes, there'll be $1,000 fine here in California if you refer to somebody by a gender other than the one that they want to identify with. This is from the same state that gave us $1,000 fine for throwing a frisbee on the beach at Santa Monica. And then finally, one kind of upbeat story, I guess. There's an actress out there, Ariel Winter. She loves guns, and she wasn't afraid to say so. Is her career finished? We're going to find out soon enough, I guess. Joining me now is an old soldier comrade in arms from back in the beginning of the Tea Party days, back in 2008, 2009. My friend Megan Barth is with us. You can find her at reaganbabe.com. Hey, Megan, good to see you.
Hey, Bill, always great to see you, too. Thanks for having me on.
It's an absolute goat rodeo out there, isn't it, Megan? It's just hard to recognize this country. All right, we'll just kind of go through them bit by bit and see what we have to say. Why don't we start with Guillermo Del Toro? Now, he's a very, very talented director. His movie Pan's Labyrinth, I thought, was just terrific. He's got a new film out called The Shape of Water. Got all kinds of awards overseas. And Guillermo Del Toro says that America under Donald Trump is like a cancer. It's a sweet guy, huh?
Yeah, and what Del Toro seems to forget is that actually Mexico, where he's from, Guadalajara specifically, has a very large cancer. It's turning into a narco state. And so Mexico has become a narco state, which specializes not only in drug trafficking, but human trafficking. And that's why we want a wall to our southern border. I find it interesting that Mexican officials met with members of our military about a southern wall along the Mexico border for their own security regarding a wall to the south of Guadalajara. And they did so because they wanted security and they wanted to make sure that criminals were not entering their country. Well, we have the same desires. What is a cancer in America is socialism and the expansion of government. And under Barack Obama, we saw that he overspent $1 trillion he added to the national debt because of the expansion of government and because of policies like Obamacare. So socialism and progressives are the cancer in this country.
You know, one thing I've noticed about these people like Benicio del Toro or James Cameron, who's Canadian, several other people who are different nationals who work here in Hollywood, I've noticed that they seem to be willing to take the cancer's money, though. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I've been watching kind of this infiltration of politics into entertainment, whether that's football or even the Miss USA pageant. And also outspoken celebrities that said, please, conservatives, don't come to my movie. Well, when you look at the statistics, 60% of consumers are conservatives. That's who's spending the money on entertainment. And then we see entertainment being turned off. The NFL ratings are in the tank. Miss America ratings are in the tank. And it shows that, the politicization of entertainment is really being rejected by Americans. Americans don't want to sit around and watch our country be bashed. And we don't want to be told that we don't think like them, therefore we're not equal. And so the more and more that actors and directors delve into politics and then pollute entertainment with their own ideology, I think they're going to find that their bank accounts are going to suffer a bit.
Yeah, I think so too. And you were talking about the Miss America awards, the Miss America pageant, rather. The questions that were set up for those contestants are just shocking. We talked about that a little earlier this morning. You know, Guillermo Del Toro, as you say, was born in Guadalajara. And here's a quote he had in the same article where he said that Donald Trump's America's a cancer. He said, "I've seen for most people, this thing started 2 years ago. But if you're Mexican and you cross the border, they never really went away. They've been latent the whole time." That would be, I guess, the horrible, cancerous environment of the United States. I noticed he said if you cross the border. He didn't say if you came to America. He didn't say if you became an American citizen. He said if you cross the border, that there is, sort of an unease among the people that cross the border. And now that unease is stronger, and therefore Donald Trump is a cancer and America is a home of cancer and all the rest. As you point out, it's Mexico that's the failed state. It's Mexico that's the narco state, basically. It's the Mexican economy that's worthless. It's the entire thing. That's why people are coming this way, not going that way. So, Megan, when people ask me what kind of immigration policy I want for America, I tell them I'll take Mexico's. I'll take Mexico's. What are my standards for immigration in America? Mexico's would be fine for me. Thank you. They have a strict border security. Once you're in the country, you have to be constantly letting them know where you are. If you get involved in politics, in Mexican politics, you're thrown out on your ear right away. And a number of other things that would sound like fascism here in the land of cancer. But down in Mexico, this is just business as usual.
Well, you're exactly correct. And let's not forget that under DAPA, many MS-13 gang members crossed over our border, and that had been happening for years as well. A border wall is about safety and security and deterrence. We have every right to monitor who comes in this country. Was he referring to Ellis Island as a bunch of racists running that island? No. We actually had infirmaries. We didn't accept every single immigrant that came into this country. We actually had tests that they had to take, written tests, proving that they could provide into their new home country through assimilation as well as smarts and talents. And so I don't know how we've gotten so far from that protection of our sovereignty, but that's what's called progressivism. That is progressive, according to the progressives. And if it was up to the cancer of progressivism, we would have open borders, much like we see over in Europe. And how is that really working out for them?
Yeah, and when you say we'd have open borders, what you really mean is people like us would have open borders. The people who are calling for open borders, people like Nancy Pelosi and, I don't know, any number of Hollywood celebrities, and I'm sure Benicio del Toro and, Jessica Alba and all the rest. When they talk about open borders, they're serious. They think that anybody should be allowed to come to America anytime they please without any background checks or immigration or anything like that. But when they say they should be able to come to America, Megan, what they mean is they should be able to come to your America. But if you try to go to their America, if you try to set foot on Meryl Streep's property or Jessica Alba's property or any one of these other multimillionaires, Jeff Zuckerberg, for example, is talking about, we need all the immigrants we can get. We shouldn't have any walls, any immigration, nothing. But you set foot on Jeff Zuckerberg's property, you put the heel of your shoe on the edge of his grass, and private security will be there to cart you away in no time. He bought the houses all around his house so that he could extend out his perimeter because he didn't want people looking at him. So this is the kind of thing that I find just a teeny weeny itty bitty little bit hypocritical.
Yes, the double standard is always pervasive amongst the progressives. What's good for them is not good for everyone else. I mean, Cher even said that we should bring in DACA members, but I really don't see that her house is open in Malibu. And quite frankly, it's surrounded by a 9-foot hedge, which acts like a wall. So when they lead the way with their progressive thought and their ideology and open their homes, right. And even the Pope is calling for open borders. We'll tear down the wall around the Vatican. How about that?
Yeah, how about that? Why don't we just do that? Why don't you go first? And if you're one of these people that thinks that private citizens shouldn't own guns, then go first, Nancy Pelosi, and go first, all of the rest of you. Go without armed security. Don't go with no security at all. Americans can't afford to hire other people for security. So if you're right, if it turns out that there's really it's just the presence of guns that is causing all these problems, why don't you just turn your security guys' guns in and everything will be fine? You can take the same risk as you want the rest of us to take. It's all about them, and it's all about preserving their privileges while maintaining this sense of moral outrage and moral superiority. Enough about this guy. It's a shame. I really liked his movies. But, you know, I will not be going to see The Shape of Water, imagine. By the way, he says he wanted to make the movie to help heal the political divide in this country, and certainly the fastest way you can get to heal a divide between two nations is to call the other one, you know, cancer. Kid Rock is really kind of tearing things up. Megan, you know, it seemed like just such a joke. But then again, you know, we've had Al Franken in the Senate for God knows how long, and he's a joke. So Kid Rock has been actually talking quite a bit about a Senate run, and Kid Rock has a lot of street cred. And Kid Rock had a combination of concert, political rally, and something else that I can't put my finger on. But let's just take a quick listen to a clip from Kid Rock just a couple days ago at a concert he had in Michigan.
What's going on in the world today? It seems the government wants to give everyone health insurance but wants us all to pay. But a redistribution of wealth seems more like their plan. And I don't believe that you should save, sacrifice, do things by the book, and then have to take care of some deadbeat milking the system lazy motherfucking man.
There's a lot of stuff that we had to cut out because it's Kid Rock, but basically he said, in response to government health care, he said, I don't think that those of you who work hard and play by the book should have to fork over your money to pay for a bunch of deadbeat, lazy, good-for-nothings who don't want to get off their butts. You know, it's funny because people on the left are just aghast. They're saying, well, this is part of the Trump phenomenon. It is, actually. As a matter of fact, they're right about that for a change. Got something right. And people look at this and they think it's so unseemly that Kid Rock would be even the idea of him running for Senate is just ridiculous and so far beneath the dignity of the United States. But here's the thing, Megan. Kid Rock is talking about things that actually matter, and he's talking about them in a way that regular people can connect to. And in my mind, it makes him a far better politician than Mitch McConnell, let's say.
Well, absolutely. And the system was designed, our political system was designed so that anybody could enter the political system from a variety of backgrounds. Look at who our founders were. They were doctors, blacksmiths, electricians, farmers. So that's what's great about America. You don't have a monarchy where it's the power and control is just handed down because of your familial ties. I am all for Kid Rock running, and I think that actually he'll win. When you look at early polling, he will win. He loves this country, obviously. He loves his city of Detroit. He's decided to set up home there and stay there. He's a capitalist at heart. He's built a billion-dollar brand. He's talented. And if he wants to bring his policies to Washington, the door is wide open. That the voters are going to decide whether or not they want him as their representative. And once he gets in, which I believe he will, who knows what's in store for his political future. Look, I was asked to run for mayor of Irvine at one time, and that's Irvine, California. And I decided that I'm better on the outside throwing bombs onto the inside, trying to make politicians honest. If he wants to sacrifice what he's built in order to become a politician, that's what this country is about, getting involved in the political process. And it's not just about voting. It's about running for office as well.
Kind of funny, isn't it, how progressives will look at this and say, Kid Rock for Senate? He's not qualified. We should run George Clooney or Tom Hanks.
Or The Rock himself.
So we
could have The Rock against The Rock.
By the way, Megan, I'm glad you're sitting down because it's coming as a terrible shock to you. But Kid Rock has been accused of racism and being a white supremacist because he's gaining traction in a state that has been abandoned by the Democrats for Detroit for, 80 years now? And Kid Rock is not afraid to point that out to people. So needless to say, we got to get out the R-bomb. But one thing that has impressed me quite a bit was that Kid Rock's not taking this lying down. As a matter of fact, he had something to say to both the far left that's accused him of being a racist, and he also had something to say to the actual racists.
Call me a racist because I'm not PC and think you have to remind me that Black Lives Matter. Nazis, bigots, and now again the KKK says screw all you assholes, stay the f away.
Nazis,
Absolutely.
bigots, and the KKK, I say, screw all of you and just stay away. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. It's exactly how you feel. He's not letting them get away with it, is he?
No, and I think that's what's his appeal, is that Americans always love a fighter. They love a leader, and they will align themselves behind a winner. We have to fight back against the slurs and against the defamation and against the libel. Bill, how many times have you been called a racist simply because you're a Republican? I can count. I don't have enough fingers, actually, to count on how many times I've been called a racist. But
You mean today?
Yeah, exactly. But that's always the default position of the progressives, because they don't have a moral argument about why socialism is so great. They don't have an ethical argument on the expansion of government. They have no premise that they can argue from to support their totalitarian-esque policies that they use by force. And this is the thing, the progressives don't implement policy through a majority type of rule, whether that be in the Senate, like we saw Obamacare. It was one-sided. So they believe that through force is how you are supposed to implement policy and procedure, and they've done so quite well under the last administration.
Yeah, it's become very clear to me that I care a great deal more about Black Americans than, let's say, Al Sharpton does, much more. And I'll tell you why. Because I'm willing to face these charges and point out the pathologies that are going on in the Black community as the result of this Democratic rule for the last 100 years in cases like that. And people like Al Sharpton are just determined to keep taking the money under the table, like the rest of all these corrupt politicians on these cities, and basically letting the murder rate go to, 50 per 100,000 or something like that in places like Chicago, Newark, St. Louis, Detroit. All of them run by Democrats uninterrupted for 60, 70 years. They're the ones who are killing Black people. And you have a Republican mayor come to New York City in the person of Rudy Giuliani. He also got called a racist. But Giuliani and Bratton started enforcing the laws in New York City. And Giuliani said not too long ago, and he's absolutely right. He says, I have saved more Black lives than the Black Lives Matter community can imagine because I enforced the law in places where Black people were being murdered. And he cut the murder rate. New York always used to lead the country's murder rate. It's always New York, Washington, back and forth. It's not even in the top 10 anymore, I don't think.
Well, when it comes to saving Black lives, where is Black Lives Matter in Houston after Hurricane Harvey? Where are they all throughout Texas after Hurricane Harvey ravaged Texas? Where are they in Florida? Where is the Nation of Islam helping Black lives in Florida and in Texas? Instead, they use their insightful rhetoric to demean specifically white people. Now, that is, in and of itself, racist. But Black Lives Matter has been given a lot of power, specifically from the last administration. They visited with that administration no less than 16 times in the White House. They have been very influential in policing policies in the various cities that you mentioned that now have the highest crime and murder rates. And so if Chicago wants to be a Trump-free zone and a gun-free zone, perhaps they should start by implementing law and order in their city instead of allowing a sanctuary policy that allows gun running, illegal immigration, drug running, et cetera, that is the cause and the root cause of all this violence.
Yeah, that's right. That's a great point, too, by the way. Where is Nation of Islam and Black Lives Matter in Houston or down in Florida? All we saw there were people basically taking their trucks and their boats, didn't matter what color they were, and they were driving over to Houston and launching these boats and rescuing people. It doesn't matter what color they are. My friend Scott Ott said this today. I thought he was spot on the nose. He said the American people are much, much, much better than they want you to believe on TV. When we come back after the break, we're going to talk about a transgender story in California that's literally going to make your toes curl, and then a little spot of good news before we're done for the day. This is the Hot Mike Show here on NRA TV. We'll be right back.
One person is in custody connected to the deadly shooting of an Indiana police officer.
At least 2 snipers fire on police from elevated positions.
We're mourning the loss of an NYPD officer and single mother.
Our country's law enforcement officers represent the best of American courage. Yet today, a deceitful media has put their courage under fire, making the job more dangerous for our police.
45 cops keep their lives. How many of you are going to
I'm Wayne LaPierre with the NRA. It's time we honor our law enforcement again. I invite you to stand with us by donating your vehicles to NRA Cars for Freedom as we lead the effort to back our blue. Visit NRACarsForFreedom.com or call 1-866-NRA-GIFT and we'll come pick up your vehicle. Donations are tax deductible and will support the NRA Foundation's law enforcement training to active and retired police officers. The NRA stands with those willing to risk their lives and keep us safe. Help us back our blue by visiting NRACarsForFreedom.com or calling 1-866-NRA-GIFT today.
I'm Coleon Noir. I know you bought this little black box so you could binge watch some overly pretentious crime boss serial du jour from the paid cable entity currently reputed to show the most skin. But what if I told you that you can stay up to date on all of your Second Amendment issues, news, and NRA lifestyle programming for free? All you have to do is click the app and download.
And we're back with my friend Megan Barth, Reagan Babe of ReaganBabe.com. And I was just over at her website checking it out before we did the show today. And one of the top stories there is something that is simply going to be beyond your belief. Two final stories today, both from California. You can hardly imagine my pride. I have to set this one up. A couple weeks ago, not too long ago anyway, there was a girl, a 6-year-old girl, and she was in school with other 6-year-olds. And she said hello to a boy, and she called him by his name that he'd always been known as. Let's just say it was Tommy. So she said, "Hi, Tommy." And for this, she was hauled down to the principal's office and interrogated for about an hour. And the reason she was interrogated for about an hour is because Tommy is a transgender child now. He doesn't identify as Tommy anymore. And so this act of this little girl, this 6-year-old girl saying hello, Tommy, to this little 6-year-old boy was, needless to say, an act of incredible aggression and suppression and a microaggression and all the rest. And she's obviously some kind of terrorist threat. And so after about an hour of interrogation and bursting into tears, needless to say, this little girl, they finally decided, probably didn't mean any harm when she called this boy Tommy, who she's always called Tommy, Tommy. Okay, we got that straight. She misgendered him, misgender identified him, misgendering. Yeah, that's the word, misgendered him. So now we find out, this is from Megan's website, we find that a law would criminalize the misgendering of gendered persons is about to pass the California legislature and could result in a fine of up to $1,000 and a year in prison. And then it says what perfect timing and refers to the 6-year-old event I just mentioned. You can see some picture here of how progressive we are in California and how incredibly deep we are morally. So, Megan, if somebody walks into a room and it appears to be a man, and you say, "Hey, how's it going, buddy?" $1,000 fine for you and a year in jail if turns out that this person doesn't identify as a man.
Yeah, and this is a part of the progressive thought in California. And it's going to start, believe it or not, if this law passes, if it's SB 219, which is Senate Bill 219, and I'm sure it'll pass through the Assembly because they're so progressive, they will only apply this law to nursing homes. So, Bill, I ask you, how many, gender-confused octogenarians do you know? So they're going to start incrementally, and this is what progressivism or liberalism is. It's incrementalism. They start small, like they did with Obamacare, so they can get to single payer. So they're starting small with nursing homes, and they're only going to, jail or fine 80 or 90-year-olds in case, Bob calls Trudy, and Trudy's like, well, no, now my name is Tommy. And so perhaps they're going to start jailing elderly people out of nursing homes or elder care facilities, but that's not where it's going to stop. And we have to talk about gender dysmorphia, because that's really what this transgender LBGTQPIOMOLOP is all about. It is, at its crux, gender dysmorphia. And to put this onus on a 6-year-old who doesn't even know how to really write in cursive, let alone identify transgender kids, and who at 6 years old really knows, this is the thing about progressives. It's all about science when it comes to climate change. But science goes out the window when it comes to gender identity, and science goes out the window when it comes to abortion.
Yep, that's right. That's right. And what you said about incrementalism is exactly right. It's a ratchet. It's basically, it moves a little bit, but it never goes back. Moves a little bit, never goes back. You can find our friend Megan Barth over at reaganbeg.com. And we've been at this a long time, Megan and I. It's good to see you again, Megan, and thanks for the work you're doing out there.
Thanks so much, Phil. I appreciate it. Talk soon.
Good to see you. And we'll just wrap up with one story that's a little more positive. There's an actress in Hollywood. Her name is Ariel Winter, and she made a tweet not too long ago. She put a big smiley face out there, and she wrote, this is when you pass your firearm safety test and get your certificate. Big smiley face. Then she took a picture of herself with a pistol and then also with, looks like 2 shotguns there. And the tag was prepping for the zombie apocalypse, obviously. And so my question is, since she's come out as an actress in Hollywood, a relatively unknown actress, and has come out in favor of gun ownership unapologetically, I suspect her career is over. And I'm not joking. I'm going to be very interested to see if we ever hear from Ariel Winter again. And if it turns out that I'm right, she has my deepest sympathy, and certainly the sympathy of many, many, many other conservatives in show business who have to deal with this kind of thing every day and stare at their feet when people talk about how grand communism is. That'll do it for the Hot Mike Show today. I'm Bill Whittle. Thanks for joining us. This is NRA TV.